Folk Tales. Dan the Dancer. The king mourned his beautiful wife for a year and a day. When his mourning was over, he had it announced all over the land that he would marry any maiden who could spin yarn of gold. One old woman heard this news and rushed home to her house to tell her ugly daughter. "Well, my dear, could you spin yarn of gold out of string?" Her daughter set about thinking and soon set her heart on becoming queen. Once, when her mother was away in the village, she shut all the doors, covered all the windows so as not to be seen by anybody, and began to spin yarn. She kept on at it for quite some time, but there was no way she could make yarn of gold out of old string. "Oh, I can't go on like this. If someone taught me how to spin yarn of gold, I'd give him my body and my soul, even if he was the devil himself." "Here I am, sweetheart. What do you wish?" The girl told him what, and asked him to teach her how to spin yarn of gold out of simple string. She said she'd give him anything he asked. "I'll teach you if you give me your body and your soul in a year from now." The girl agreed. "Sit here on this stool with your back to the door like me, you see. Then say 3 times, Devla, Devla Disako." Then the devil began to spin yarn and, believe it or not, yarn of gold came spinning off the spinning wheel. Then the girl too sat down on the little stool with her back to the door and repeated 3 times, Devla, Devla Disako. Then she set about spinning and, miracle of miracles, yarn of gold began to spin off the spinning wheel onto the spindle in her hand. "Well, my dear, I'll leave you now, but I'll be back when the year has passed. Do you understand our bargain?" I do, but before you go, please tell me your name." "I won't do that, but if you can guess, I won't take you away when the year's over." Then the girl carried on spinning until the candles had to be lit. And then her mother came home. "Goodness, my dear, is what I see true? Can you really make yarn of gold out of old string?" "Yes, I can, Mother. Hurry right away and tell the king the news." The king found it very hard to believe. "Well, Your Majesty, I swear upon my life it's true. Come and see for yourself." So the king set off to see for himself with 6 ministers, counts, barons, and generals. Not even the old oven had ever seen so many lords of the land gather together before. It stood there gaping with its mouth so wide that it was unable to shut it ever again. Then the king and his lords all sat down and watched how the ugly girl spun yarn of gold out of string. The king was worried that he would have to wed such an ugly girl. But what else could he do? He sent a carriage drawn by 4 horses to fetch the girl, summoned a priest, and married her right away. The king slowly became accustomed to his new wife's looks, and soon he no longer saw her as ugly. They lived like this for quite some time, but as the days passed, the poor girl turned queen became sadder and sadder. "What will become of me when the year is over?" Both the king and the courtiers tried to cheer the queen up, but in vain. Then one day the king went out hunting with his men. He ordered his men to go right up to the top of the hill and set up camp under the largest tree. "We have a problem, Your Majesty. We can't set up camp under the largest tree because a small man shaped like a monster has made a fire there. Maybe we shouldn't go there at all." "On the contrary, we'll go and see who it is, even if it's the devil himself." And they reached the top of the hill, and there they saw a fire, and around the fire, a tiny man dancing around a huge pot with an enormous wooden spoon. Burn fire, burn flame, in this pot is what I make, a beautiful bride I will take, and Dan the dancer is no fake. As the king caught sight of him, he burst out laughing and went straight home to tell his wife so that she could have a good laugh too. And that's just what happened. The queen laughed so much that it seemed as though she had no worries in the world. Time went slowly by, and the year she had bargained would soon be reached at noon that day. On the strike of 12, just as the king and queen were about to eat a delicious bowl of soup, there was a knocking on the door. The queen could guess who it was. "Who is it?" "It's me, sweetheart, the one who taught you how to spin yarn of gold out of string. The year's up and I've come to take you away. If you can say who I am, you can stay." "You mean your name?" "It's Dan the dancer. And to hell with you." Upon this, the little man burst with rage and slammed against the door, and all that was left of him was a big blob of tar. Then the king asked his wife how she knew who the man was. In her great fright, she told him all that had happened. "Well, my love, if you can still spin yarn of gold out of old string after this, you can stay. But if you can't, you must leave here and never return." So the woman sat down and said, "Devla, devla disako," and she began to spin. But it was no use. No yarn of gold would come off the spinning wheel. The woman had a fit, and in her rage, she flew against the door. There she turned into tar just like the devil. All the shoemakers and bootmakers went there from then on whenever they needed tar. And if I'm not mistaken, they go there still. Hungarian folk tales. The Soldier's Luck. Once upon a time, there lived a soldier. The soldier was returning home on leave from the army and passing through the forest when an old witch appeared and blocked his path. "Would you like to have wealth and riches, young man?" "Of course, for I do not have a penny to my name." "Then listen to me. You must go to the hollow tree and summon up all the money you desire. But you can only make money magically appear if you grant me one wish." "Just tell me what you wish, old lady." "There are 3 barrels of coins down there, but each is guarded by a fearsome hound. I shall give you an apron, and once you get down there, you must spread it on the ground and place the dogs on it. When you have collected all the money you want, you will look for a box on the table and you must bring that box to me. Now I shall tie this rope around your waist and lower you down, and when your task is complete, I shall pull you back again." The soldier looked at the coins in the first barrel, but they were all copper. "I don't want these," he said, set the dog back on the pile and carried on. The second barrel contained silver coins. He said, "I don't want these either." The third barrel was filled with gold coins, so he placed the dog on the apron and filled all his pockets with gold. Then he picked up the magic box from the table and called to the old witch to hoist him back up. "So tell me, witch, why do you want this little box?" But the old witch could not tell him, so he slit her throat with his silver sword. Then the soldier went on his way, Soon he reached a town where he bought himself good food and new clothes. Then he hired a coach and rode through the town. And as he rode, he showered the townspeople with money. He gave money willingly because he knew what it was to be poor. Then he rented a room at the local inn where he made merry every night. But the day eventually came when he ran out of money and had neither bread nor candles. Then he recalled that the little box from inside the hollow tree had a candle in it. The soldier lit the candle and the first fearsome dog appeared. "What is your wish, master?" "I've run out of money. I have neither bread nor anything else." Then the dog hurried off and soon returned with a bag brimming full of money for its master. The young soldier soon received news that there was a young princess living in the town, but that no one was allowed to visit her in person. The soldier soon set his heart on seeing her. So he lit the candle, and the dog appeared. "What is your wish, master?" "I hear there is a princess whom no one is allowed to see." "How could I possibly see what she's like?" "She's said to be very beautiful indeed." Then the dog went off without saying a word and soon returned with the princess. The royal maid went to the princess's room in the palace and discovered that she was gone. As soon as she realized, she began to scream. Everybody asked, "Where can she have gone? Where can she have gone?" The king said, "If she comes back, a maid should sit by the side of her bed and watch over her at night and see which way she goes should she leave." So when the princess was back in her room, a maid sat by the side of her bed. The next night, when the dog took her away, the maid ran after them but failed to note the number of the house and so didn't know where the dog had taken her. "I know what to do," the king said. So he filled a bag with flour, cut the corner off the bag, and tied it to the princess's waist. So wherever the dog took her, the flour trail betrayed them. The next day, soldiers followed the flour trail and it led them directly to the young soldier. The king was furious and sentenced the young soldier to death for what he had done. All the people of the town gathered to see the execution. Then a young boy happened to pass right in front of the soldier's prison cell window, and the soldier said to him, "Where are you going, young lad?" "I'm going to see the execution of some soldier." "Go no further. I'm that soldier. Go back quickly." He told the lad where exactly. "And bring me the box you'll find on the table." The young boy went off, brought the box, and passed it to him. So when he was led to the gallows, the soldier told the hangman that he had one last wish. The king allowed the soldier to smoke a pipe. Then the soldier lit the candle in the box 3 times and all 3 dogs appeared. "What is your wish, master?" "What's my wish? Can you not see I am about to be hanged?" So then the 3 dogs set upon the crowd, but they were careful not to harm the pretty princess. Then the soldier married the princess, and they both lived happily ever after. Hungarian folk tales. The Cricket. Once upon a time, there lived a bootmaker and a shoemaker. They were both as poor as church mice. One day, the bootmaker said to the shoemaker, "Let the devil go hungry now, my friend. If we can't make an honest living out of our trade, let's make money any other way we can." So they thought and they thought until they came up with an idea. The shoemaker would lead the judge's 6 chestnut horses into the forest, tie them to a tree, and the bootmaker would read from an old book, as if it were written there, where the judge could find his horses. But all for good money, of course. That is exactly what they did, just as they had agreed. A search for the horses was launched that stretched far across the land, but to no avail. Then the bookmaker went to see the judge and said to him, "How much will you pay me, your worship, if I find you a clue?" The judge promised to pay him 300 florins. So the bootmaker took up an old book and began to read it out loud. Up on the snow-covered hillside, in the middle of the thick forest, all the 6 horses stand tied to a beech tree. That's where they will be found. All the village folk quickly prepared and hurried to the forest, where they found the 6 horses tied to a beech tree. Then the judge happily paid the bootmaker the 300 florins. News of Mr. Cricket, for that was the bootmaker's name, spread far and wide across the land. The myth was that he had a magic book, and nothing in the world could happen that he could not solve with the help of that book. Eventually, even the king got word of this and was delighted by the news, as the queen had just lost her favourite ring and had made herself ill with crying. So the king had his royal carriage harnessed with 6 golden horses and sent off to fetch the bookmaker. He even sent his royal guards with it so that Mr. Cricket would come to no harm on the way back. Mr. Cricket felt so nervous that he began to shiver and quiver like a willow leaf, as he was afraid his deceit would be uncovered. When they arrived at the palace, the king greeted him with great joy. The king immediately set about telling him what had happened. "I'll have you know, Mr. Cricket, that if you find the ring, I'll give you 6 carts full of gold." "I'll do my best, your majesty, although I doubt I shall find it." Then he asked the king to have him locked up in a room so that he could think for 3 days. And the king willingly complied. He led Mr. Cricket into the loveliest room and sent him so much to eat and to drink that the poor man was at a loss where to begin. The first day went by, but Mr. Cricket came up with nothing. The second day went by, and the third, and poor Mr. Cricket began to lose heart. So he thought to himself that he would count how many courses he was going to have for the last meal of his life. The first servant came in with the first course, and Mr. Cricket said out loud, "Here comes the first." The servant was so frightened by this that he almost dropped the plate. He rushed out to the kitchen and said to the cook and the undercook, "Oh dear, we're done for. That magician knows we stole the ring." Of course, this was true. Indeed, it had been the servant, the cook and the undercook who had stolen the Queen's ring. They agreed that the second course should be taken in by the cook. And as the cook entered the room, Mr. Cricket said, "Here comes the second." The cook slammed down the plate in great fright and fled to the kitchen. "Oh dear, we're done for. I'll see what he says to me," said the undercook, and entered with the third course in hand. Of course, the bootmaker said, "Here comes the third." The undercook was so scared that he fell to his knees in front of Mr. Cricket and admitted that the 3 of them had stolen the ring. Then the servant and the cook ran in, and they too fell to their knees, begging him not to tell on them and promised to pay him 300 florins each. Mr. Cricket thought to himself that it sounded good enough. Beside the 6 carts of gold, he had them then produce the ring, which he pushed into a piece of white bread and threw it out of the window just as the king's turkeys were passing by. One of the turkeys picked it up and swallowed it at once. Mr. Cricket was thrilled to inform the king, "Your Majesty, I know where the ring is. Have that turkey killed and you will find the ring in its belly." So the turkey was killed, its stomach opened, and lo and behold, the Queen's ring came forth. Then the ring was taken quickly to the Queen. In the twinkling of an eye, the Queen stopped her sobbing and was filled with the joy of the world. The king had 6 carts filled with gold. Then he had Mr. Cricket driven home in the royal carriage, and his steward and a regiment of soldiers escort him so that no harm could come to all the gold. As they were riding along, an idea crossed the steward's mind. He thought, I'll play a trick on you, you bootmaker magician. So he got out of the coach, spotted a cricket on the ground, picked it up and held it tight in his hand. Then he asked Mr. Cricket, "Well, if you know so much, tell me what I'm holding in my hand." Mr. Cricket scratched his head and finally said, "Well, Cricket, you're in a tight corner now." "That's right," said the steward. "It is indeed a cricket. Your wisdom is endless. Now I know."